8 teams booked their place in the last 16 of the Champions Cup over the weekend just gone. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. Round 3 of the Champions Cup is done. It was pretty decisive for a lot of teams. We had, as I said in the intro, we had 8 teams already through to the knockout stages, so that's half of the last 16 already decided. Obviously, there's still some jostling for position among those teams, trying to get those, home quarterfinals and home semi-final draws if possible. And then we've got then the rest of the teams in the competition battling out for those last 8 places as well. But in this one, we're going to, have a look at each of the results, talk just a tiny bit about the games, not too much, and then have a look at the pools. And then on probably Wednesday evening or Thursday morning, we'll have a preview of the final round where we talk a little bit more about, the teams in terms of what the matchups are for the final round and what the permutations are of, where teams potentially could finish and who needs what, that kind of thing. So we're going to start with Friday's game, and that was Northampton Saints 61, Bayonne 14. So Saints put up a big score in the first half. Bayonne kind of hit back a little bit with a couple of tries, not really threatening, in terms of actually the result of the game, just having some kind of say in terms of getting on the scoreboard, and then Saints tacking on a few more points as well, and that could be important for them in terms of points difference when it comes to determining, the top seeds, if they can go on and win the final game as well. And that's what they're aiming for. Saints, they haven't been great in European competition, in the last several years, really. Like, they used to be a big team in what was the Heineken Cup, and this feels like, at least for them, maybe a step in the right direction in terms of re-emerging as one of the big threats from the Premiership. It's a great win for them, and going along with their performance so far in the competition, they really look like they're in good stead heading into the knockout stages. Bayonne, they've had 2 rounds since that draw that they got against Munster in the opening round of Thomond Park. It really does feel like that was kind of a flash in the pan from them. They haven't looked great shakes in their other games, and it looks like Munster probably dropped the ball in that one rather than Bayonne kind of stepping up to the plate, in their debut season here. And they could still finish off with a win, but I don't think they're gonna make the knockout stages. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. On to the Saturday games then. So when the early kick-offs was Lyon 34, Connacht 20. Connacht started out, they scored the first try, but Lyon hit back, 2 tries on the bounce to get themselves back in front. So Connacht didn't enjoy the lead for too long, but then Connacht did fight their way back into the game to actually lead when they hit the 20-point mark. But then Lyon just, overtook them and just stretched away. Connacht not really having anything, any kind of say towards the end of the game, and it's kind of been kind of a little kind of mini example of what Connacht's season has been like, and what Connacht have been like in recent seasons as well, where there's lots of up and downs and lots of excitement and stuff, but in the end, disappointment really that they're not consistent enough, I think, to compete at this level. I know they went for kind of continuity pick after Andy Friend there, but it still feels like there is some kind of transition going on there. Like, even, we saw with Ireland as well, when Andy Farrell stepped up to head coach, having been like assistant for so long out with Joe Schmidt, that you still, new guy coming in, just because he's part of the old regime doesn't mean he has exactly the same ideas. And I think that's what Connacht are going through at the moment. So, it's good that they get to compete at this level this year, but, their performances would say that probably they won't be competing in this competition next year unless they have a really good second half to the season. But really good win for Lyon there. The other game that kicked off at the same time then was Exeter 19, Glasgow 17. So Exeter just coming up with the win I think it was about 4 minutes to go. They scored a try and then converted it to win. Glasgow did have a chance at the end to kind of nick it and couldn't actually do it. But I think this again is kind of symptomatic of Glasgow over the last kind of 4 or 5 seasons. They've shown that they're a talented group of players, that they have the ability to kind of compete with the top teams in the URC and the top teams in Europe as well. But when it comes down to, these types of games where you just need that little bit extra, that little bit of kind of that ability to eke out a win when it could go either way, a lot of the time it goes against them. And it's one of these things, I think, where we talked about it before, it's that experience of winning. Like Exeter have it. They have that experience of being able to win these tight games. They did it last year where they were kind of, not the fancy team to make it as far as they did, like getting all the way, right through the competition. But, they had to go through, like almost losing and then, equalizing right at the end, like, and going into like added time in one of the games. And so they've a lot more kind of experience at this level in terms of eking out those wins than Glasgow do. And Glasgow, it really does feel like this team needs just, 1 or 2 big wins in games like this to get them to have that mindset that this is something we've done in the past, we can do it again, but they haven't quite got there yet. It's it's a decent performance from them, but Glasgow, I feel like they're such a good team, so many talented players in that team that you want to see results rather than performances from them at this stage. But they came very close. Exeter though got the win from there, and we'll see how that affects the table in a little bit. On to then the 3:15 kickoff. So the first one up was Bristol Bears 17, Vodacom Bulls 31. So the Bulls, they're in the URC. You can already see that they are like a big team in the URC, and they wanted to bring that as well to the European stage too. They got to a final of the URC a couple of seasons ago, and they've been in the knockout stages twice in this competition. They did pretty well in their first season, but they want more. I think the Bulls and the Stormers, especially, at least at the moment, are probably the 2 most prominent of the South African teams, and are the ones that want to join that kind of pantheon of the likes of Munster, Leinster, Saracens, Toulouse, La Rochelle, those kind of teams, like the Leicesters of this world. They want to be up there, and this kind of win is I'm not going to say it would be expected, but they're the type of team that can go to a place like Bristol and pull off a win like this, and it's a really good win for them as well, and kind of helping them to get into those knockout stages as well. At the same time, then we also had another big away win. Toulon 18, Munster 29. Munster, they needed to win this. We talked about it in the build-up that between these two teams, the loser was probably going to be knocked out. The way things were shaping up, because Munster had that 1 draw and a loss. Toulon had lost their first 2 games, so this was a little mini knockout game really between these two. So it feels like Toulon are probably out now. Things could happen still mathematically, not necessarily out, but just the way experience of this competition, you would feel like that they probably are at this stage. So Munster, a great win for them, and they kind of need it as well, because over the holiday period, the Christmas period, they didn't have the best time of it in the URC, losing a couple of interpros there and dropping down the table there as well. So this will be a big G up for them, but they'll want to finish the job in their final game as well, back at Thomond Park, and kind of keep that record going as well. One of the big things I think that Munster have over all the other Irish provinces, and includes Leinster in that as well, is that Thomond Park is still probably the most intimidating Irish rugby ground for a team to travel to for a big European night. And, they've got to keep that going. They can't, even if they qualify, if they lose their last game in the pool stages, then I feel like just a little bit that luster is gone for them, and they don't want that. So we'll see how they go from here. The next one then was 5:30 kickoff. This was Leinster 43, Stade Francais 7. So Stade sent over, pretty much a second string team. Now, it just kind of speaks to, though, the quality of French rugby at the moment. All of the quality young players that are coming through, that they were able to hold Leinster for a very long time in the game, and create moments of danger as well. Like, they only scored the one try, and that was towards right at the end, but still they had moments of danger, and you can see there's talent in that squad below kind of their first team as well. And it speaks to, I think, a lot of the French teams now. We're used to seeing them send over, their second teams against, whether it's URC teams or Premiership teams, when they feel like they're out of the competition. If they lose their first couple, generally that's what they do. But the quality of those teams that they're sending now is better, simply because the overall quality in French rugby has just massively increased in the last few years. Leinster, a team who are used to having a quality second team themselves. Honestly, I think that Leinster's second team would probably qualify for knockout stages of this competition. But this was the first team that they put out here, and they kind of they struggled a bit at the start to kind of get a grip on the game. Then you could see there's a little bits of fluency coming to them, both on defence. Defence certainly looked better. There is still space in behind them, though, for teams to kick into. We saw Stade almost exploited that, but Gibson Park was kind of switched on and able to stop them doing that. But in attack as well, Leinster beginning to find the rhythm there as well. Still not quite there. A lot of balls being dropped on the ground that you wouldn't normally see, but there are signs that Leinster are making steps forward, and it's always weird. I know I'm a Leinster fan, so maybe I'm a bit more critical of them than I am of other teams, but it's still weird to think that it's a team who are topping their pool, and I'm still talking about them not being anywhere near their best and having a lot of work to do. But that's just how I see it, and I try to be honest about every team that I watch, and that's how I feel about Leinster at the minute. On to the other 5:30 kickoff, and that was the Stormers 31, Sale Sharks 24. So Stormers, talked about the Bulls wanting to kind of make an impression in Europe. Stormers are the same. I think they're desperate, and the fans are desperate to really, announce themselves in European rugby and get to, a quarterfinal, a semi-final, and then potentially final and lift the trophy. That's got to be, I think, not just the dream, but the plan for both the Bulls and the Stormers. And then, as the other South African teams kind of progress or come back into kind of the pomp that they had in the past, that's what they would be looking at too. They're not here to make up the numbers, and the way you could argue about some of the URC teams are. You could argue about that. I'm not just saying URC, by the way. Some of the English and some of the French teams, same thing. They're in the competition. They don't want to obviously be there making up the numbers, but in terms of just that ability to year on year be competitive, Stormers want to be up there. That's where they want to be. They don't want to be a flash in the pan team, that has a good season and it doesn't qualify the season after. They want to qualify season after season. They want to be getting to the knockout stages every season. And then from there, it's going to be, okay, let's get to a quarterfinal, let's get to a semi-final, a final, etc., and then finally lift the trophy. So kind of the Stormers and the Bulls, the way I see them is similar to Munster and Leinster in Ireland, and in the past Ulster as well. Ulster used to be great in Europe. I remember those days. But that's where they want to be. They want to build their own legacy as well. And people complain about them being in the competition. I think it's amazing because they're going to lift the standards and they're going to drive teams from all over Europe to higher standards as well, and they're going to create rivalries between those teams. But this one, they beat Sale Sharks. Sale, they're a decent team, Sale, but they don't really have that European pedigree themselves, and they've been around like European competition a lot longer than the Stormers, but they're one of those teams kind of similar to kind of a Glasgow, I would say, where there's talent and ability in the squad, but you've got to be able to prove it in games like this, where it's a close game. Can you get that away win, that big away win that kind of lifts you and catapults you into kind of another level of competition? And right now they're not quite there, but we're not denying the quality that is in that squad at the same time. Okay, on to the later kickoff then. It was Cardiff 15, Harlequins 54. And, talking about teams making up the numbers, I think Cardiff this year really are just there making up the numbers. I honestly didn't think at the start of the competition that there would be any chance of them qualifying. And, I've talked about this Cardiff team. I think there is talent in the team. I think there's a lot of good young talent coming in that team. And if they're kept together as a squad, and if they're coached well and brought together as well and given the opportunities, this Cardiff team could be something special in 3 or 4 years time, or even 2 years time from now, because they have a good crop of youngsters coming through. But right now they're not at the level to really compete in this competition. They're here because they won the Welsh Shield last year, finishing outside the playoff places in the URC. That's not going to happen, for next season's competition, because Shield winners no longer have a guaranteed place in the competition. You've got to finish in the top 8, which I think is good. It's good for Welsh rugby. It's good for the URC as well, because it means that the quality of teams that qualify have to be up to that minimum standard, and it will drive the Welsh teams on as well. We're seeing them now, getting up there and competing for those top 8 places. I think that's great. But in this one, Cardiff didn't really, put anything up to Quins. They did kind of get a decent start, and we are seeing, some patches from them, good play, but Quins just had too much for them. And when you look at Cardiff, the kind of, part of their progress at the moment is they're trying to build that game of being able to kind of run the ball. And Quins are a team who love to run the ball. They love turnover ball as well, and we saw that in this game as well, that they're one of the best teams, I think, from England that can punish you. Just that transition is so good for them. They're probably the best English team at transition that I've seen, and we see a lot of games where it's very high scoring, and sometimes they come out the right side and sometimes the wrong side of the scoreline, but it's always kind of entertaining with them. And this one, they just had too much for Cardiff in the end. Other game then, another team who really were kind of out of their depth. I feel Ulster versus Toulouse. So 24, Ulster 24, Toulouse 48. Toulouse just on fire, especially Dupont. For them, he had a great game. Ulster, they got that Tom Stewart try just before half time, and then they scored a couple of late tries. They couldn't get a fourth try for a bonus point, which would have been some kind of consolation out of them. I probably put them in a much better position to potentially qualify for knockout stages. But Toulouse, they're one of those teams that year on year, they're always quality in this competition, and you've got to be a good team to beat them home or away, because Toulouse, they take this competition seriously. There's a reason why they've won it more than anyone else, and we saw it in this game as well. That and they're so good at when the foot's on the throat, it never comes off. They just keep on. They want to score more. They don't want to kind of back off and have rest or whatever. They want to see, can we score more points? And that's what they're doing in this one. Also talked about how where it feels like they're close to a position where maybe they need some kind of change or transition within the organization, because they had a couple of seasons there where they looked really good in the URC, and it looked like they were maybe going to deliver on the promise, because there's so much talent in that Ulster squad. It's kind of similar to Glasgow, but then they don't deliver on the big stage, and this was a big stage for them, and it didn't deliver, and now they're really going to be up against it to try and qualify at the moment. Potentially they can still do it, but you would think that other teams, if they do qualify, would look at them as they'd want to be drawn against Ulster, is my honest opinion on that. Like Ulster coming to your place, for most teams that will be kind of highly seeded in this competition, would not be a big threat for them. Not saying that they can't pull off a one-off performance. I'm saying that week in, week out, their standards aren't high enough to compete against the likes of Toulouse, and we saw that in this game, I think. But Toulouse pushing for top seeding themselves from there. Then on to Sunday games. So we had Bath 29, Racing 25. So Bath coming back really against Racing to win in the end. And Bath, another team who a long time ago used to be a big name. They're still a big name. It's just that they haven't lifted a trophy in a long time. But in terms of European competition, it's been a very, very long time since Bath were seen as one of the biggest teams in Europe. They've been kind of superseded by the likes of Leicester, and then in more recent times the likes of Saracens and Exeter, etc. So they're kind of a grand old team, as it were, and to see them winning is good, and see them doing well in the competition it's got to be good for the competition as well. Then with Racing there, you've got you can kind of see like Racing, they're now changing the way things are going with them, where they're certainly being more competitive and taking this competition more seriously. They're kind of moving more towards the likes of Toulouse in terms of always taking all of the games of this competition seriously. I think that they've still got a ways to go in terms of obviously this is the first season under a new coach, so there's a transition period there. But I can see Racing getting to the point where they're going to have a period where they're in the knockout stages year on year, and that's how you kind of build that big European legacy that they want to do there. They're desperate for it, and that's the way La Rochelle were, and you saw when they committed to it, how it went for them. And I think under Stuart Lancaster there, it's potentially for them. There's talk as well of potentially Owen Farrell going to Racing as well. Lancaster saying he'd be interested in taking him there, and that's the kind of ambition that they're showing right now. Though performance isn't quite there for them. They're not winning those tight games, kind of similar to other teams that we talked about. But I think Lancaster, and maybe the addition to Farrell and a couple of other players like him, would give them that nous to be able to produce that in the future. On to the next game then. Talk about now. So you got Stade La Rochelle versus Leicester Tigers. La Rochelle just completely blew Tigers out of the water in this one. They needed to, because they lost their first two games, and they knew that if they lost this one, that was it. They were gone. Defending champions out in the pool stages. And I think I'm pretty sure that since we moved away from the old Heineken Cup format of like having just a last 8. So since we moved to having last 16, no defending champion has gone out in pool stages. So La Rochelle absolutely did not want to be the first one to do that. Now they're not quite there yet, and we'll see that when we look at the pool. But this is a big step for them in that direction. Leicester, they had ambitions to be up there with Leinster, and because they're playing them in the final game, they wanted that to be like a winner takes all in terms of winning the pool. It's not quite there for them now, but don't kind of take this one result and think, oh, they're a bad team because of it. I think it's one of those ones where it's two really good teams. Stade have been, on a higher level for the last few seasons than most teams in Europe anyway, and they just hit that level, I think, in this game. So Leicester, there's still going to be a lot of threat from them as well in the pool stages, and then when they go into the knockouts too. But decent win for La Rochelle there. They still, though, have to finish the job. Then the final game of the round was probably I think the best performance. So Bordeaux 55, Saracens 15. So when you look at these two teams before the competition started, right? And if you asked like 100 like knowledgeable rugby fans from all over Europe, including France or wherever, and you said Bordeaux Saracens in the pool stages this year is going to finish 55-15. Who's going to be the winner? Almost everybody would have picked Saracens, because in terms of perception before these pool stages started, that would have been how people would have saw Saracens. 3 times winner of the competition, the multiple premiership titles as well, full of amazing players. Now Bordeaux have some amazing players, the likes of Biarri and Pernod and stuff like that, but Saracens have been there, done that. Whereas Bordeaux, this is like the first year really we're seeing them, kind of emerge as we're the new force in French rugby. We're the new La Rochelle, as it were, potentially at least. Now, doing well in pool stages is all well and good. You've then got to deliver the knockout stages, and that's going to come for them as well. But this is a statement win from them, just absolutely thrashing one of the powerhouses, the current powerhouses of Europe. Is a real statement victory from them. Saracens, they were kind of shell-shocked, I think, in the game and with the result as well. And it's one that really does say, listen, we were from Bordeaux, we were top of the pool, we won our first 2 games. People probably thought, oh, this will be where we come a cropper, but no, they came and they delivered there on that one. And nobody's going to want to be the team that has to go there in the knockout stages and try and turn them over. It's going to be, I think it's going to have to be one of the big names to get drawn against them. You could maybe see like a Munster on a good day, that kind of team like that, or even like Saracens themselves, going there and having a good game and winning. But if it's kind of a somebody like an Ulster or someone who's going there, you're backing Bordeaux to win every time. That's how good they are. And honestly, at the start of the season, as an Irish fan and a fan of all Irish provinces, if somebody said to me, Ulster are going to go to Bordeaux in the last 16, I think, oh, well, that's good. That's a chance for, a good chance for Ulster to actually get an away win, build some confidence, get into the quarterfinals, and then maybe that squad can build from there. But now it's like, oh, you don't want, it's one of the teams you want to avoid, really. But that, those are the results. We're going to have a look at the pools now, and as I said, we will have more comprehensive look at how the permutations and stuff like that in our preview of round 4. So pool 1, starting with Bordeaux. So Bordeaux at the top there with 15 points. They've qualified, 3 wins out of 3. We've already waxed lyrical about them. Nothing much more to say. Lyon in second place there, 2 wins and a loss. They qualified. It's for them, Bordeaux have been amazing, but Lyon as well, big step up for them. Then we've got the Bulls there in third place, mathematically not qualified yet, but it's hard to see them not qualifying, honestly. They might be looking at, a losing bonus point would guarantee qualifying, but Bulls are ambitious. They're going to go and want to win their last game, but I think they will qualify anyway. And it's basically I think it's one of the English teams to go through with them. Connacht do have a chance to qualify. Now they got a home game to finish, and again we'll talk a little bit more about that. But you got Bulls on 10 points, Bristol on 5, Saracens on 5, Connacht on 1. And if you said to me, of Bristol, Saracens, and Connacht, one team is going through, I'd say Saracens, honestly, because Bristol and Connacht just don't have that European nous really to pull it off. But we'll see what happens in the end. Saracens going out would be a major shock from the pool stages. Okay, on to Pool 2 then. You got Toulouse there leading the way. They've already qualified on 15 points, 3 from 3. Bath neck and neck with them, and that's a very interesting matchup now, because those two are obviously going to shoot it out for the overall win. But Toulouse are at home, so expecting Toulouse to qualify there. But whichever of them is that qualifies, they're both in really good form going through. Quins then have qualified as well. Great from them as well, because last year they were a bit abject in the pool stages, as basically themselves and Racing in the same pool again last year, kind of fighting out towards the bottom of the pool. So it's good to see them qualifying and bringing their brand of rugby as well through. You got Ulster there in 4th with 5 points. So at the moment they're in the qualifying position, but there's only one game left, and they basically got to win away from home now to qualify, which then makes you think, okay, well, maybe they won't do it. Racing and Cardiff, I'm pretty sure those two are playing each other in that final game. So it means one of them, Ulster need at least 8 points to stay ahead of whoever wins that game, which means that they've got to get a draw and a try bonus point or win their game. So that's why I'm kind of a bit, nervous for them. But yeah, Racing, between Racing and Cardiff, if you're back one of them to go through, I'd say Racing, and maybe that's going to be, scrape through and then, maybe build through the rest of the competition is the way that they're probably thinking about it. But so are Ulster and so are Cardiff as well. On to Pool 3 then. Top of the heap there is Northampton Saints, 3 from 3. They've been doing excellent. Exeter as well, 3 from 3 on 13 points. So those two already qualified. Munster next best. 1 win, a draw and a loss for 8 points. I think they probably are through, and you would expect them, at Thomond Park against the Saints, you expect them to get something out of the game. Losing bonus point maybe, but you think Munster's pride might drive them to a win, and maybe that means that Exeter potentially are going to win the pool. But again, talk a little bit more in the future. Glasgow there at the moment in the qualifying position at 4th, and qualifying for the knockout stages for Glasgow really would be good. They weren't in the competition last year. I think it was Edinburgh, right, last year, and those two have been swapping in and out. So for them to get through to knockout stages really would be a good step for them, and then put in a good performance as well in the knockout stages. They got to a European final last year, obviously in the Challenge Cup, but to have that taste, and they won't want their European adventures this year to end too soon. But then at the bottom there you have Bayonne and Toulon, and it really a lot of maybe what happens in the competition, could rest on what's going to happen with them, with those two, in terms of what teams are they going to pick for their final games, and how that then plays into results in the rest of the pool. So that's kind of interesting there. But both still have a chance to qualify. I'm just not sure that either of them is going to really, give it their all to qualify for. We'll see. But, being at home can have a big difference for teams as well, especially the French teams. They don't tend to send the best of teams traveling when they're in this position, but when they're at home, they do play strong teams and can kind of upset the apple cart by doing that as well. On to Pool 4 then. You got Leinster leading the way there. They qualified. They're pretty much guaranteed top spot, although Leicester potentially on points difference, etc., denying Leinster a losing bonus point, getting a bonus point themselves, could just about pip them to it. But you would expect from a Leinster team that they will get at least something out of that game with the Tigers to tie up that top spot. But the rest of the pool then is pretty close. You got the Stormers there in second at 9 points. You got Leicester as well on 9 points there too. You got La Rochelle in fourth on 7 points. So at the moment in the qualifying position, I cannot see anybody taking him out of that, honestly. And then you've got so I think it's basically La Rochelle and Sharks. It's between those two for the last position in the pool, and you've got to back La Rochelle, I think, for that. As I said, Sale, they've got talent. If they could pull off that qualification and get that win, that would be an amazing step for them, and kind of a big shock for the pool stages as well. The defending champions going out, but honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. Then Stade Francais propping up the table there. Again, the only real thing for them is to maybe throw a spanner in the works. Again, they're going to be home for the last game, so they're going to want to make an impression at least coming out of the competition, and potentially just make a team kind of sweat on their position in the pool as well from that. But that's all of the pool standings. As I said, on Wednesday we will have that Wednesday night or Thursday morning at least, we will have that preview. We'll talk a little bit more about where teams stand, and I didn't really talk too much about who's playing who in the last round because I want to leave more of that talk for then. But I hope you've enjoyed this one. I would, just ask that if you did, maybe share, comment, post a like, all of that kind of stuff for the algorithm, because YouTube algorithm loves stuff like that, and it has a massive effect on the number of people that actually gets shown my video because of that as well. Like, I think, if I get like 4 or 5 comments even just on a video, I can get like double, triple, quadruple the number of views just because of the way the algorithm works. But anyway, enough of that crap. Hope you guys are enjoying your rugby. I'm had a little bit of a World Cup hangover, even though like the URC started back up in the middle of the World Cup anyway. But still, like, my enthusiasm for rugby kind of waned a little bit, but now it's really coming back. We've got like we're almost finished the pool stages, and we're then going to have 6 nations coming up, and then we have the knockout stages as well. The URC is beginning to hot up. Seeing more teams being competitive in that this year has been absolutely amazing. So I think this season is going to be a great season for rugby, and I hope you enjoy the journey with me as well.